You've heard the story 1,000 times. The Titanic hit an iceberg and sank. But what if I told you that might not be the real reason? The tale has been told in books, films, and whispers across generations. But each retelling leaves gaps, moments of silence where human choices, fears, and pride hide. Some experts believe the disaster was set in motion days earlier. To understand Titanic, we must not just recall the collision, but the world that built her and the fragile confidence that sank with her. And at the end of this video, you'll learn exactly how many people survived that freezing night. April 1912. The largest and most luxurious ship in the world sets out on her maiden voyage, the unsinkable Titanic. On board, the richest people on the planet, along with ordinary immigrants dreaming of a new life in America. Politicians, millionaires, artists, bankers, but also farmers, workers, entire families with children. None of them knew yet. In just a few days, this ship would become a symbol of the greatest maritime catastrophe of the 20th century. And the question that echoes through history, exactly how many survived? You'll find out at the very end. The voyage began with triumph. The Titanic was a floating city, nearly 3 football fields long, 53 meters high, like a modern 15-story building. There were restaurants, cafes, smoking rooms, a swimming pool, a gym, even a Turkish bath. For the wealthy, it was the pinnacle of comfort. For the poor, the last hope of reaching America. The ship was divided into 3 classes. First class passengers enjoyed crystal chandeliers, fine wines, French cuisine. Second class, comfortable, respectable rooms, similar to first class on most other liners. Third class, though far simpler, was still clean and spacious compared to the conditions immigrants were used to. It was truly the ship of dreams. As she left Southampton Harbor, crowds gathered on the docks to wave hats and handkerchiefs. The liner's whistles echoed like thunder, vibrating through the harbor walls. For many, it was not simply a departure, but a spectacle. The beginning of a voyage the press promised would rewrite history. But even before she left port, Titanic carried warnings. Her design included 16 watertight compartments. Impressive on paper, but with one fatal flaw. If more than 4 compartments flooded, the ship would inevitably sink. And the iceberg would open? 6. Even more shocking, there were lifeboats for only about half the passengers. Why so few? Because the owners at White Star Line believed too many lifeboats would spoil the ship's appearance. A triumph of aesthetics over human lives. And when the moment of truth came, many boats were launched half empty. On the morning of departure, a scheduled lifeboat drill was canceled, likely because the captain wanted passengers to enjoy the calm seas and luxury without needless interruptions. Lookouts stationed high above the deck lacked binoculars after a key was misplaced in England. Tiny oversights, dismissed as trivial, now stand like dark foreshadows carved into history. The night of April 14th to 15, the ocean was unusually calm, no waves, a deceptive stillness. Without waves breaking on the ice, the iceberg ahead was almost invisible. At 11:40 p.m., a lookout spotted the dark shape. "Iceberg right ahead!" The engines roared into reverse. The ship swerved, but it was too late. The iceberg ripped open 90 meters of steel plates on the starboard side. The first 5 compartments flooded in less than an hour. The Titanic was doomed. Survivors later described the sound not as a crash, but a low, tearing groan. Metal grinding against ice like thunder trapped underwater. Passengers in their cabins felt only a faint shudder, like a train braking suddenly. Few realized the scale of what had just happened. Some even laughed it off, unaware their fate had already been sealed. But was the iceberg the only culprit? Historians still debate, Some point to a fire that had been burning in one of the coal bunkers even before departure. The fire may have weakened the steel walls, making them brittle at the worst possible moment. Others point to speed. Despite iceberg warnings from nearby ships, Titanic steamed ahead at almost maximum pace, 22 knots. Why? Some say Captain Smith wanted to break a transatlantic record. Others, that White Star Line demanded the crossing be as fast as possible to impress the world. And then comes the strangest detail of all. Titanic's distress signals were received by the nearby ship Californian, but her radio operator had gone to bed, and her captain believed the rockets were celebrations. Had the Californian responded immediately, hundreds, maybe over 1,000, could have been saved. Instead, silence, indifference, fatal delay, and the conspiracy theories. One claims the Titanic never even sailed. Her nearly identical twin, the liner Olympic, had been damaged in a collision with a warship. Insurance would not pay. So, the theory goes, the company swapped the ships, sending the crippled Olympic out disguised as Titanic, and the accident was simply a convenient insurance fraud. Others look to the passenger list. Several of the Titanic's wealthiest guests were outspoken opponents of creating the U.S. Federal Reserve banking system. They all perished. Meanwhile, some of its most powerful supporters conveniently survived. Coincidence or cold calculation? We may never know. As rockets pierced the night sky, passengers crowded the decks in disbelief. Some clutched rosaries, others pocket watches, each minute dragging slower than the last. On the wireless, desperate SOS signals echoed into the void. Ships heard them, but distance and doubt stood in the way. The greatest liner in the world was calling, and almost no one was answering. Now imagine the final hours, a freezing night. The band plays softly, first lively waltzes, later solemn hymns, to keep people calm. Men in tuxedos stand aside, letting women and children board. Some try to disguise themselves. Others embrace their fate with dignity. In the third-class cabins below, confusion reigns. Many families are trapped by locked gates designed to keep them separate from the higher classes. Some manage to break through. Many do not. At 2:20 a.m., the stern rose into the night sky. The ship broke in two, then silence, followed by the screams of hundreds thrown into the -2 degrees Celsius Atlantic. After 15 minutes, most voices were gone. Only a few survived on makeshift rafts or overturned lifeboats. Rescue came too late. The ship Carpathia arrived 2 hours later. By then, the ocean was empty, save for half-filled lifeboats and the drifting dead. Survivors would later describe the sound of the ship's final plunge as a roar mixed with a hiss, like a giant sigh as 46,000 tons of steel vanished into darkness. In the lifeboats, silence replaced screams, broken only by the sobs of children and the creak of oars. Overhead, the stars shone with cruel indifference, lighting a tragedy that no dawn could erase. Out of 2,224 passengers and crew, only 706 survived. Among them, children who lost their parents, women widowed in an instant, and men who would forever carry the guilt of survival. So what really happened? An iceberg, human errors, arrogance, greed, or a deeper conspiracy? The Titanic was more than a ship. She was a mirror of the world, divided by class, driven by ambition, blinded by pride, and her fate was sealed long before she ever touched the sea. In the days that followed, survivors faced interrogations by journalists and officials. Some were hailed as heroes, others condemned as cowards. The disaster forced new laws, lifeboats for all, radios manned day and night, and international ice patrols. Yet for those who lived through that night, no rule book could erase the cries that haunted their dreams. History is full of stories we think we know, until we dig deeper, and each story carries lessons for today. If you want to keep uncovering the hidden truths of the past, don't miss the next episode. Subscribe to 10 Men to Know and see history in a whole new light.